Let the record reflect that all members are present, and we are going to go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. All right, we'll go ahead and start with agenda item B1. Make a motion to approve the agenda form consistent with the governing board policies. Temporarily suspend policies which this agenda may be inconsistent.
Second.
Motion made by Jay Leonard, seconded by Jen Tanner. Go ahead and vote.
Yes.
Motion carries. Oh, it's up there. I'm used to having it on the second screen. Hello. All right, motion carries. Getting back into being in person. Awesome. All right, let's go ahead and move on. We will move to agenda item C1. Recognitions and celebrations, Arizona School Administrators, ASA Distinguished Administrators Award. Dr. Kellis.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, and members of cabinet. This evening, I am very pleased to be able to present our first recognition. Every year, Arizona School Administrators recognizes extraordinary administrators throughout the state of Arizona. This year, Dysart Unified School District was privileged to have 2 of our extraordinary administrators recognized by the Arizona School Administrators as distinguished administrators and receive the Distinguished Administrator Award. Mr. Hawkins was named by ASA, Arizona School Administrators, as a Distinguished Administrator for the Secondary Division. Mr. Hawkins has been the principal at Shadow Ridge High School for 12 years. He has helped make Shadow Ridge a home to a community of learners that inspire student excellence. He's admired on campus by both students and staff for his visibility, his unwavering support for everyone, and his direct association with so many of the community members at Shadow Ridge High School. So we'd like to congratulate Mr. Hawkins for the Distinguished Administrator Award. We'd also like to recognize our very own Mr. Jim Dean, who was also recognized as a Distinguished Administrator by Arizona School Administrators. Mr. Dean has done some extraordinary things for the district, namely under his direction, bringing the Vista to life, bringing Growing Minds Preschool to life, the opening of Asante Preparatory Academy, the launch of our first annual Festival of the Arts, and many, many other things, the least of not which is growing our athletics. Mr. Dean has served as an assistant principal now for 10 years. He is getting very close to completing his doctorate and has just been, again, an extraordinary administrator for the Dysart Unified School District. So I'd like to ask the board to come down and recognize Mr. Dean at this time. Is that Mr. Dean with an extraordinary pin? Yeah, thank him for all the work. High five. Yeah, jump up there. Yeah. You all step back. Maybe we should stand on there and he should.
Yes. Yes.
You have to back up.
Ready?
Stand up tall.
Dr. Kellis.
So he really got a short
I'm used to standing in the back.
Better. 1, 2, 3. Excellent.
Thank you, Governing Board. You can be seated.
That's what I thought.
And at this time, I will let Mr. Ken Hicks present the second recognition this evening.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Kellis, colleagues and community members. I'm proud to present to you this recognition, our second recognition, which of course we can't go 6 months without celebrating our amazing efforts of our staff, and especially Ms. Janice Peel on our wellness efforts. And so although she's not here, there's a list of the people attached to the agenda for all the people that participated in this virtual step challenge. So it did start, I think it was March 16th and went through April 24th. We did not win the traveling trophy. We took second, but we did take first place in the top 20 participant divisions for all the steps they still did during this virtual challenge, which was a challenge as they were trying to isolate in that sense. So I just wanted to say great job to everybody, and here's the plaque for celebrating that. Good job for wellness.
Phenomenal. Definitely appreciate the people that have worked so hard and stepped up to the challenge. I'm here all week, don't worry.
Oh, no.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on. Are we headed to D1 with individual audience with individuals? Ms. Dunsmore, do we have anybody?
We have two.
Woohoo!
The first one we have, I believe it's Kelvin Ray Patrick.
Hit your mic.
Oh, sorry.
And then you will have to read the statement.
I'm not in yet. You want to read the statement? I'm not in still.
I can
Sorry.
give it to you, Dawn,
Okay.
if you want to use that mic.
Thank you.
Right there.
Okay. This is the time for the public to comment. Members of the board may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Pursuant to ARS 38-431-01, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. In order to facilitate accomplishing the business of the district in a timely manner, a time limit of 3 minutes will be imposed for each individual or group addressing the board. When you approach the podium, please state your name for the record.
Are we allowed to remove these, or do you have to talk with it?
You can take it off.
Okay. Well, it's my 3 minutes starting now?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
Well, I would like to start by giving consideration to John Williams, because I'm here on behalf of the students of Willow Canyon High School. A group of parents brought an issue similar to the one that I'm coming before you tonight with. And this gentleman, he handled the situation very well. The kids and everyone was satisfied with the remedy that he brought forth for us. Tonight, I'm here to talk about a situation where a coach came forward with some information about another coach who was trying to engage in inappropriate conduct with another kid. She overheard the conversation. Shortly afterward, this coach was dismissed from Willow Canyon after parents, kids coming forth, with all the emails, the witnesses. The situation was not handled the way any one of us as a parent would want our kids to be in a situation like that. In the violations that we have, everything is documented. There's been charges filed with the EEOC. This is a situation to where I wish some of the other parents wanted to be here tonight to voice their concerns. They wanted to make the board aware of what's going on so everyone can know what's going on in the Dysart district. This is a situation to where right now these kids are still subject to this coach. They're still in that position. This coach has engaged in violation of their constitutional rights, where some of these kids wanted to kneel during the game. He took them in a room and threatened them with kicking them off the volleyball team if they participated or exercised their constitutional rights. Now, see, these are things that my kids, when they come home and tell me, it doesn't sit right with me. And the coach that was terminated, that was my wife. She's been a coach at Willow Canyon for 5 years. She's been a great coach, but after she came forth and she told the administration about what was going on, she was shortly let go right after that. And some of the violations that this coach has engaged in, he's engaged in verbally abusing the players. Like my daughter, she was one of the players that was verbally abused. They said they had an investigation. She was never called in and never asked one question about anything that transpired. So that investigation is not valid. There's been players who refuse to play for this coach, but they still choose to keep this guy here at the program. We would just ask the board to contact these parents, contact these kids, get each and every one of them, let them voice their concerns to you and see exactly what it is in Dysart that we're striving for. We want a school board, a system where every kid feels valued. No one should be verbally abused. No one should feel like if I come forward and say something, something's going to happen to me. That's not a situation no one wants to be in. That's not America. That's not what I go to work for, and that's not what I send my kids to school for. And
Yeah, that was 3 minutes. I'm so sorry.
well, I have a lot more, because the list goes on. Like, there's parents that have filed claims for this coach sitting here threatening these kids. If they don't play for his club, then they will not be welcome in his team. And if you would, please contact these parents and get their information, because they want to come and talk to you guys to voice their concerns.
Thank you. Dr. Kells, can we look into that and get the information? And
Mr. President, members of the board and administration would be happy to provide the board with an update.
thank you for doing that. Appreciate it. We had one more.
Thank you, Dr. Kellis. Yes, the next one is Ariana Corono.
Good evening, board, community, superintendent. Typically, you guys see me in the same outfit right over there giving a student update. Today, I'm here doing the same thing, but it's a little bit different because it's not the best. So coronavirus has been hitting us a lot. A lot of us seen it worse than others. But the thing is, with district choosing to do digital learning, it's a great option. But there's some little things that I just don't think we're thinking about the impact of the students, and that's just what I'm here to kind of briefly talk about. A lot of students, just like me, they want to speak about it, they post about it on social media, but of course, not a lot of us see that. Not a lot of us connect with the students in that way, and a lot of them don't really care to speak up to board like I am tonight. So thankfully, I kind of have an outlet here, so I feel comfortable doing that. A lot of us high school students are being really impacted. For me, a lot of our senior year this year, not going to be the same. We're not going to get the memories that a lot of seniors are going to get. But on top of that, the whole digital learning, it was very nice during last year. We were able to go at our own pace because a lot of us, we work jobs. And with the pandemic, a lot of us are short-staffed at work and our hours doubled and tripled. A lot of people, including me, are having to work 40 to 50 hours a week trying to serve our community. Dysart, we try to be extraordinary. They want our students to be extraordinary. A lot of us are balancing. We were able to balance work and school last time, but with the new guidelines for school and digital learning for those first few weeks, we are there from 7:15 a.m. to 2:15 p.m. That is very difficult to work around with work scheduling for those shorthanded businesses and companies, as well as that's 8 hours a day. On top of that, we have more hours that we have to spend online doing homework and studying, and that's just not healthy to be on a computer that long for that period of time. And that's basically just looking into the impact of the students. We want to be extraordinary. We want to serve in our community. I just worked 50 hours last week serving my community. A lot of them and a lot of them are sad. A lot of the regulars are sad that I have to leave and not be able to serve. A lot of companies are shorthanded. There's not enough people with all the numbers rising in. We hear every morning about the numbers rising. Not enough people are there. We're supposed to be high school students, but we can balance academics and stuff. But digital, being there for 8+ hours a day, it's just not healthy, as well as not being able to go at our own pace to be able to balance serving not only our academic and our district, but our community. I love my school, and a lot of us can't wait to go back. I'm very involved, but it's just something to maybe consider for future references about the impact of a lot of the high school and older students. That's it for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that it?
That was it.
Excellent, thank you. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Let's go ahead and move on to E1, Superintendent Update, Dr. Kellis.
Thank you, Mr. President, and members of the board, and members of cabinet. First of all, we are officially in our 100th anniversary year, and would like to acknowledge all of our predecessors over the last 100 years who have established the foundation upon which we are being successful and that we are enjoying our term in Dysart. And we're looking forward to the next 100 years. There's a lot of things going on over the next 12 months as we celebrate this 100th anniversary. I'd like to thank our Public Relations Department, who has assembled a few recuerdos, that's what you say in Spanish, memorabilia, for each of the board members in your bag there. You'll be seeing more events coming. It's always interesting trying to celebrate something this extraordinary in a virtual world. Not something we would have expected or planned for, but it will still be a very exciting year. I'd also just like to extend a huge thank you to every single person who has been working feverishly over the last several months to get ready for school to start virtually on August 4th. There is countless hours that are being currently and have been and will continue to be put into getting ready for students. Especially now that as we are getting ready for virtual learning, we want our students to continue to have an extraordinary experience, whether they are remotely learning, whether they're in iSchool, or when we come back at a date that everybody is sitting on pins and needles waiting to find out when, whether it be in person. Again, I just want to thank everybody who's doing their part. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Dr. Kellis, I appreciate that. Let's go ahead and move on to E2, Governing Board Updates. I'll go ahead and start. I just want to say thank you to everybody who came out to the meeting in person. It's good to see half of your face at least. It's nice to get back into the grind. I know technology is amazing, and we had some good meetings, but I don't think you can substitute the in-person experience, at least for a very kinesthetic person like myself. I appreciate everybody and making the adjustments, wearing masks, and looking out for each other. And I think as we look forward to what the future holds, I know that as we come together as just good stewards of our areas of responsibility, that we can make a difference. And as we make tough decisions, especially for the schools and the individuals and the employees, I know that we're all looking for the right answers and to do the best things. I have a great respect for Dr. Kellis and the staff that have worked tirelessly as the rules of the game have changed. Sometimes it seems almost daily. And I've seen the work that's gone on behind the scenes and the adjustments and everything that we're doing to make sure that we think about every single moving piece in this giant puzzle and make sure that we have something that is extraordinary and something that we can present to the public and feel confident about. And I know that it's taken a lot of work and a lot of toll on people. So as we approach those dates that you talked about, I'm excited to obviously work within the bounds that we've been given, but I'm also excited to get the students back where they need to be and to help them continue their education in the best possible manner that we can. So I appreciate everybody and just wanted to let you know it's good to see you. It's good to be back, and I'm excited for this year. In all of the challenges that we have, I think we have the right people in the right places to make great decisions and to move forward. So that's all I've got. Anybody else?
I just wanted ditto. I can't talk with this. ditto the same sentiments that President Leonard has said. And I know that Dysart has been working tirelessly over the summer thus far because we receive regular updates from Dr. Kellis and his team. So I just want to echo the same sentiments. It's not easy. It's something that we have never faced before, but I think that with all of the work, all of the knowledge that we are getting from this, we will be able to serve our students successfully, as we have always done. So thank you, Dr. Kellis.
Awesome, thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead.
Just a couple things. First, just want to congratulate again Mr. Dean and Mr. Hawkins for your Distinguished Administrator Award. That's awesome, and not surprised, but congratulations to both of you. On June 15th, I was involved as a committee member for the Legislative Committee, the ASBA Legislative Committee, to assist in the development of the 2020 political agenda. And it's always a very, always has good conversation, lots of deep thought and time that goes into that. Just quickly, there were so many. I mean, I think it was probably almost a 7-hour meeting. Obviously talked a lot about funding. Couple of the newer things, though, there was actually a complete section on COVID response. And it discussed things like the possibility of suspending state standardized testing for 2021, making sure we're in line with accessing technology for our students, safety, lots of things. So for me, it was refreshing to be a part of that conversation, knowing that our leaders are really, they're hearing us and they're looking at these very important topics and hoping to really push forward to do some great advocacy work to make sure that our voices in education are heard. So that was wonderful. The other piece that was a little bit near and dear to my heart, they're looking into next year, possibly for school board candidates and e-file. Anyone that was out this year trying to get signatures during a state shutdown can probably appreciate that possibility. I think there's pretty much every other candidate, any other office, you're able to use like the e-file system, but not school board members. So that is something that they're looking into as well as a possibility. So again, looking forward to the delegate assembly, hopefully in September, possibly. But again, just very much appreciate being a part of that process. And then wanted just to kind of echo Mr. Leonard's sentiments about just very thankful for all the work that's been going on at district office, from Dr. Kellis and his team, down to every employee. Everyone's had to make adjustments, be flexible. It's a very emotional time. It hits everybody in different ways. And I can honestly say, in speaking with Dr. Kellis, it was probably an hour and a half, and very detailed in his responses, very open and willing to listen. I would encourage anybody who has any questions about the protocols and things to reach out to him. But just know, I mean, how frustrating it must be for all of you that you work so hard to come up with a plan and then something changes and it's back to the drawing board. So, and a lot of times I can appreciate it's like you're spinning your wheels, but just know that we all appreciate all the work that's being done across the district by everyone. So thank you for that. And I'm really just looking forward, just want to wish everybody a great first day back to school, however that looks for you, whether it be online, whether it be in person, if and when that begins anytime soon. But I think it's just exciting to finally get our students back into a routine and some consistency and structure. I think that's going to be beneficial for everybody. So I look forward to getting back into our learning environments for sure. So thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Pritchard. Anybody else? All right, thank you. Go ahead and move on. Let's go ahead and move on to action item or motion to approve consent agenda item F1. Motion to approve the agenda items as presented.
Second?
Motion made by Jay Leonard, seconded by Ms. Pritchard. Let's go ahead and vote.
I lost my connection, so can you mark me as?
Are you a yes? right, motion passes. Thank you. Did you get back?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. All right, we'll go ahead and move on. Let's go ahead and move down to section H1, information item H1, update on Dysart plan for returning to the classroom for the 2020-2021 school year. Dr. Kellis.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, members of cabinet. This is really an opportunity to allow the board to talk together with cabinet. It's not very often that there's this much activity going on with regard to the district. And just because of the rules of statute regarding meetings, it's difficult for the board to come together and have open discussion and to ask questions and be able to just dialogue. That being said, cabinet would like to just share some of the latest and greatest changes that have happened. As President Leonard said, these changes happen so quickly. And it often depends on the landscape and how things are happening at the state level, sometimes even at the national level. As we receive changes, for example, from the CDC, just as one example, we had a whole spreadsheet, a flow chart on what to do if there is direct contact. And then last week, the CDC came out with all new guidelines for direct contact. So we had to go back and revise our procedures, our protocols for cases where there's direct contact. This week, as we look at parent choices of the various options for school for this year, we can see where there's opportunities to take a plan that was originally devised and make it better for everybody. As we look at some of the needs of our employees and our parents outside of school, again, we are looking at opportunities to do things better. So sometimes it's not always driven by external forces. Sometimes it's just reflection and sheer imagination and innovation to think about what is really affecting our students. What is the experience that our teachers and our parents are going to have? And when you approach any problem to be solved with that empathetic approach, it makes it so much easier to understand the best solutions for it. So we will start out this evening on this agenda item with just giving some quick updates. Some of these things may seem like they are routine, but some of them have had some tweaks even within the last hour. And so we'll start off right here with Mr. Dean, and then we'll just go to Dr. Pulling, Mr. Hicks, and Mr. Croto.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the Governing Board, Dr. Kellis, and members of Cabinet. It's great to see you again this evening in person. It's been quite some time, and we're happy to see faces again. So thank you for being here this evening. Just a quick update from support services and the departments that are working tirelessly to prepare for the start of school. Our Student Services Department continues to work with our school administrators, with our social workers, and with local law enforcement in various aspects as it relates to school reopening. Additionally, Student Services has been taxed with the responsibility of COVID response for students. When our students return to campus, if students test positive, our Student Services Department will be the ones that will be handling that and facilitating that process. And so they've been working, on what those processes look like. We've had some opportunity to practice those processes as we've had athletic and marching band folks back throughout the summer. And we've had a couple of situations in which we've had to put our plan into place. So they've been working on that piece. Community education has never stopped in this time. Community education continued to offer daycare services and preschool services for our community, our first responders, and our essential workers during the entire time that we've been away from school. And so John Williams and his crew deserve just absolute praise in the effort that they've gone through to keep daycare and preschool available for our community. And so thank you. To Ms. Pritchard's point, things do change quickly and often. And as of about an hour ago, we set in motion some plans that we're still flushing out the final details, but we're working through community education to provide an opportunity for our community related to learning labs and the possibility of bringing a small number of students to our campus during the school day and providing Den Club before and after school to help with working families in our community who would struggle with supervision of their students during the day. We mention this tonight because it is a process that we are comfortable that we can move forward with, but there's a few logistical pieces that we will work out and share with our community early next week, but we're very excited about the possibility and the opportunities that that may provide. Regarding athletics, we are in constant contact with the AIA and their plans for competition for this school year. As I stated earlier, we have had our athletes and our marching band students in for summer workouts. We paused for a few weeks, a couple weeks ago, but we're back now moving forward. Additionally, I would like to remind the board that we've created DSB Live, which is Dysart Student Broadcasting Live, which is a live stream program in our district where we'll be able to live stream athletic events, arts competitions, and arts activities, various pieces throughout the school year. Perhaps this is more timely than ever needed before because we'll be able to live stream for those who can't attend to watch our students. As a matter of fact, we have our first live stream event with an athletic group, one of our POM teams, on Sunday of this week. And so we're very excited about that, looking forward to providing the opportunity for those that cannot attend because we reached the 50-person capacity in that. Just quickly, finishing up, CTE it continues to work to plan courses. As you know, the CTE courses are very hands-on courses, and so they're working to provide opportunities within their online pieces to allow for those pieces or for those components to be experienced by students. And then finally, our PR team certainly remains our key communicators as we move forward. They're working endlessly to make sure that we push information to parents. So support services has been busy, as everyone has, and we're looking forward to the start of the school year in 13 days.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, cabinet, and community. It's great to see you tonight and a pleasure to be here. And just have to give my team kudos. They've been working really hard, really focused on a few things. First, today we welcomed our new educators back. So new educator orientation started today. And new educators showed up to their school site and were welcomed by the administrative team and the support staff. And my team worked to push out some virtual PD for those folks. So they had a mix of virtual PD and in-person PD at the school site. I was fortunate to stop into a few schools, and it's just great to see teachers and staff. Other things our team has been working on, a resource links page that will be for parents, for students, for staff, with links on how to use Schoology on remote learning. It'll have Q&A, it'll have video, and we're really just working hard on putting resources together to support staff, students, parents, because the remote learning will look different than the spring, and online resources will be very high quality, and we're excited to use them, but we also know that people will need support. We have prepared a best practices in online learning, PD for all teachers, and we'll be supporting administrative teams at schools in helping deliver that. And we're also working with our vendors on preparing resources, again, just so that no matter the position or the teacher or the subject or the need, that we are providing them the resources so that they can teach students. And then also we're delivering ongoing PD. We kept a lot of the same PD that we had scheduled. We've had ESS PD this summer, some virtual, some in person, some gifted PD and whatnot. So there's some examples, but we're just really focused on preparing being as flexible as possible, but preparing as best as possible so that students and staff and parents have the resources they need. So thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Callis, colleagues, communities. I will say we've been talking a little bit about superpowers as we all have heroes around us. My superpower is to take very simple things and make them very complex and talk very long about them. So I did bring my COVID file. I reread the executive order 41 and 44 so that we could go over a more detailed description of that. But in all seriousness, it is very true. It's every single day we're going back through how we're doing, double checking things. Did I already ask you this? Following through with my team and those leaders to make sure that we're creating the safest environment possible. And facilities, the plant managers have been here from day one and continue to work down through work orders as we also have adjusted their schedule and what they're cleaning and how. That means they begin each day with spraying down the front offices with, I forget the name of the gun, the Texas Protesics machine that has the electrostatic disinfectant that goes everywhere and cleans everything. They do that on every single day of the front office, any high-touch areas, as well as working through cleaning first before they get to their work orders and supporting the staff that are showing up. We've worked with ABM to modify the cleaning schedule so that we're cleaning staff restrooms more frequently, as that has come up of concerns, and so we're trying to address concerns. We're working with the HVAC team to make sure that we purge the air every day. So at about 5 a.m., maybe a little earlier, we're going to stagger things just to save utilities, but we're going to push all the air out and bring all new fresh air in. It is the coolest time of day, so we're bringing the coolest air in because then we have to condition that air as it comes in. The air cycles through a couple times an hour anyway because we bring outside air in, but this is a complete flush, push everything out, so it's a complete purge. And so we're looking at how we could adjust and help those. We've been delivering PPE for the last 2 weeks to our schools. Masks, thermometers, disinfectants, hand sanitizers, plexiglass barriers, hand sanitizer stands. To the front office and principals, we're creating inventory lists so that we know what we're giving everybody so they know who's getting it and how to distribute it. Transportation has been meeting for the last couple of weeks to figure out how can we train 150 people when we do have in-person, how and what are we doing. So we've been working to move that to an online environment, but how do we still train? We have to bring in small groups to do CPR. There's certain things for certifications that we can't do everything online, and so they're looking at how they could break that up and keep that in very small groups and keep everybody safe. As easy as just coming to work is very difficult when you have 150 people all coming in at the same time, so how we're staggering time, so no more. We're even thinking a color coding system so they can stay in their car until they see a green light before the next group of people come in, so that we're able to take temperatures at all the different, I think we'll have 10 thermometers down there, so how we're using those to keep everybody separate and taking that. So we're working through logistically every single thing, how we're spraying down the bus on the inside in between routes, in between the stop, not in between the stops, in between the routes. So they continue to work through that process. Our food service, who did an amazing job last year, serving an unbelievable, I think it was almost 500,000 meals to our community. Took a little bit break. They will have to start up on August 4th because National School Lunch Program requires that when school starts, we have to serve lunches. And so they will be serving meals on August 4th. All K-8 students will receive the free, reduced, or paid meal. High school is the only students that choose the in-person get that option. If they're an online student, by law, they have to pay the visitor price. So it's a higher price, and they have to pay the adult visitor price meal, and that's per the federal government on that one. We will be serving breakfast and lunch options. We do have some that have completely free breakfast. I think we have 3 schools that are completely free, so they'll get a complete free. We'll have options for breakfast at both times during their scheduled time for the parents to pick up. We are asking parents to go to schoolcafe.com to put money on the account to help speed up the process. And also, I did not know this, maybe I don't watch the news enough, but we have a change shortage going on right now. And so we were not able to get the change from our bank when we requested that. So we're a little worried about not being able to provide the right change. Pushing people to the school cafe would just be able to put it on account and be able to manage that process. So we're working through this. They've already had a ton of protocols in place to keep safe as they were doing it last year. So we're just reviewing those and making sure that everybody's maintaining the distance and keeping any opportunity to make little modifications and changes we're going to do. It does look like it's curbside to keep it going as fast as possible and not having people park, come in. We do have a short window because we're keeping the same routines and structures in place. One, just to briefly talk a little bit now, the trust, we're having liability, so it is, school board associations, I think, has put out some notices. I've seen emails left and right. I am on the trust board. And so the organic pathogens is specifically excluded from our coverage, our insurance coverage. It's also excluded from any of the reinsurance coverages that the trust has purchased. And so we do have prepaid legal program, and we do also have the no-fault mold, but that is really after an entire site goes down, they will help as a claim cover the cost of cleaning, but they're not covering any claims. We do have legal, our prepaid legal process, so we do have coverage of legal costs for attorneys representing. We are reviewing template documents that they've also sent of acknowledgement, so parents are understanding to protect us in the case of lawsuits. We're actually very, very little chance of that anyway. Anybody can be sued at any time, so there's no chance of stopping anybody from suing, but legal opinion is that we're doing a lot. If you notice and look around, things don't look the same. So to try to allege that we have gross negligence, that we're not taking this serious and we're not doing something would be a very steep legal bar to climb. But we do have to look out from that process, and schools are very concerned. And so we work with the trust. I was talking to Mike Tiffany, the executive director of the trust today, about some of those acknowledgement forms and template letters and how and what we could do. So we're going to continue to review that. Staff is covered through workers' comp. There's no issue there. I know there's been some rumors that there's a law that prohibits any of those payouts or any of those concerns. That is not the trust, and we're with the Alliance, which is an arm of the trust. We are covered, and there's no concern with any inability to follow and pay out on that part. Other operations continue as we're working to track all of our COVID spending because we still have the ESSER grant, we have the GEAR grant, and now because we can't have another, we need more acronyms, we now have the ESG, which is the Enrollment Stabilization Grant that's worked through Arizona Department of Administration via the governor's office with his CARES money. And so we have 3 different grants now that we're trying to track, monitor, and apply. It is a very difficult process. We've already been denied on our first ESSER grant, which I know they said will be super easy. It is not super easy, and I feel for the people that continue to try to submit as we're having to identify every type of hand sanitizer, a 6-ounce and 8-ounce individually, what type of mask, cloth, paper, every single thing individually to go into that for our coverage of that, or for that grant, and it's very, very difficult. So we're also always reevaluating and analyzing ideas. Sorry, I talk a lot. This is my superpower. Embrace it. Ideas, decisions to ensure gifts of public funds compliance. We're constantly monitoring and managing, but we have to do the mental math every single day on every single idea that we're doing. And so we're continuing to do that. We've moved online training for student activities. We're doing the parent support groups, moving that online. So we're continuing to provide those opportunities the best we possibly can. So there you go. Now I got to the end of my sheet. I'll kick it over to HR.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Kellis, colleagues and community. I'm tired after listening to him talk, so anyway, HR has been a very busy place. So first of all, I want to just thank my team. They've done an amazing job in this time of hiring right now. Amidst all the hiring, we have staffing going on, which I'll explain. I'll talk about some employee relations pieces that we're working on, and also the exposure with the COVID. So human relations is in charge of the contacts for the employee side. You heard Mr. Dean say the students are with Karen Winterstein. The employees are going to be with HR. So to hit off staffing's going very well right now. District-wide, we're about 190 students off of our projection that we projected for this year. A lot of that, as we looked into the numbers today, come off of kindergartners. And I know we have a plan to address that and get them registered and back in. But we are down right now, and I'll elaborate more on the Friday report for you, but about 10 teachers, high school and elementary. So that's total regular ed positions, and about 19 special ed positions. So doing pretty well as a whole. Obviously, our special ed positions are a challenge every year, and we're looking to fill those and get caught up with those. In addition, in the staffing portion is, as you know, we've allowed students to choose, are they going to be in iSchool or are they going to be in face-to-face? We're all starting off, obviously, with the virtual side, but as we transition, they're going to come back either face-to-face or stay online. In the high school arena, we have about 25% of the students that have chosen, roughly about 2,000 out of the 8,500 that have chosen to remain online. So we were busy staffing that. Got an excellent staff working on that. And also in the elementary side, we have about 4,248 kids that have chosen to remain in the iSchool online piece. That's about 30% of our population. So we are busy shifting teachers. The local sites are doing an amazing job, but shifting teachers' responsibilities of either teaching the iSchool or in person or a split of both. They're doing an amazing job with that. That is ongoing. Obviously, we have school starting pretty quick, so that is one of our top priorities. Employee relations, about 3-4 weeks ago, we sent out a survey to all employees. Had a very great turnout, over 2,500 employees answered it. We wanted to know 3 things from them, basically. Are everything okay to come to work? I'm not coming back to work, or do you need some type of accommodation to come back to work? Like I said, over 2,500 employees filled that out. We are in the process of calling everybody that answered 2 and 3. So can't come back to work or I need some accommodation. That has amounted to almost 400 phone calls for my staff. We're busy reassuring them, processing any accommodations they need or mutual agreements. Again, employee relations, trying to make it right for them to return to work and make sure. There's a lot of fear that, as people have been saying, and people are at different places with this. So we want to assure them of all the process we have in order and make it right. So we're busy doing that. On top of that is our exposure for our employees. We continue process 7 days a week, whether it's direct exposure, indirect exposure. They all report to HR and we decide if they have to quarantine or not quarantine. And notify, obviously, the work and those type of things, the supervisors of those people coming in there. So we have the Families First Corona Response Act, which provides them extra leave by the government. That's through December 31st. So we process all those and we process the return with the CDC guidelines. So again, that's been a lot of questions back and forth with employees and we continue to process that. So that's life in HR right now. So thank you, and it's great to see everybody.
So that's just a quick superficial overview of a lot of different things. Behind each of those topics that were just discussed, there's a whole team of staff who are working to make those reality. So again, I thank everybody who's been involved with the process. As I've said many times before, it's going to change. Tomorrow we are anticipating Governor Ducey making a press release and releasing, as he said at his last press release, he's going to be announcing more opportunities for flexibility for schools, I believe is what he said. And that is a very broad statement to make. Opportunities for flexibility. I was interviewed by Channel 15 yesterday, and I was asked, what would you like the governor to say? And in the spirit of his statement of flexibility, I said, I would like him to just let us do whatever we want to do and pay for it. And while I say that somewhat in jest, I think that would be great if we could localize our plan to the needs and not be tied into a statewide plan that may or may not be conducive to the needs of our district. We certainly appreciate everything that the governor has done. I've met with him on different occasions regarding what our needs are, as have other superintendents, and he has been responsive to those. So I'm optimistic that we will be able to move forward with the flexibility that we need to help our students have an extraordinary learning experience. So at this point, I just will open it up to the board, and I'll turn it back to President Leonard to facilitate the discussion, but we're open to any questions that the board has.
Thank you for that. I appreciate those presentations, and the fact that Ken didn't have any slides made it even better. Not that I didn't miss your slides, but But one of the things that, being a business owner and being in a situation, we have about 100 employees in 7 different states, and there's a lot of concerns, and understanding that as, a community, as, people that are responsible for A, education, B, safety of a lot of students and scholars, and then C, quite a few employees. Mr. Croto, I appreciate you brushing off your smiling and dialing skills and reaching out to every one of those employees that needs to hear from you and needs that. So definitely commend you and your people for doing that, and it's a lot. The beginning of school is a huge undertaking by any stretch of the imagination on any regular year. As we move forward, we definitely need to pay attention to the additional work and the additional workload and the stressors that are out there for everybody in the situations that they're in. And some of those are perceived and some of those are real. They're very real things that people are going to face and that we have to take seriously and move on and help our employees and our staff and our students and our community members wrap their heads around all of those changes and the moving targets that we're all trying to hit. In my staff meeting, we talked about the 80-20 rule. 80% of what we're dealing with is logical, simple decisions that we're faced with, and we can look at and we can make those decisions because logic is simple, and just for the ease of math, that other 20% is broken up into microcosms all over the place, and it's that moving target. It's that piece that everybody wants to have an opinion on, and some of it's backed by science, and some of it's backed on what I call bro science, where people have come up with ideas, and and here we are just working to make the best decisions. Obviously, as we make those decisions, we have to rely on reliable sources that have real science and real data. And so as we look at moving forward, I would encourage people to visit our website, which is an amazing source of information. As those moving targets we're trying to hit, we are put in a situation where all communication is not created equal. Fake book doesn't always have the best answers, and the bro science isn't necessarily where we need to turn to get emotional and involved in debates. In all reality, we have to make decisions, we have to move forward, and we have to look at all of the moving pieces and parts and do the best. Hindsight's always 20/20. Nobody wants to be in a situation where you look back and are judged on the decisions that we've made. But at the end of the day, we are put into a situation, us as a board, you as staff, Dr. Kellis as the leader of the district, where we have to make decisions. And so I feel comfortable in the interactions that we've had, the communications that we have, and I would ask people to turn to the real resources that are available and look at the information that's out there and know that we are relying on the professionals and the state and the government, and whatever you feel about them, those are the things that we have to turn to help the people that are in our stewardship, and that's really what we're focused on. Moving forward, I have full confidence in what we're doing, and I appreciate your time and your energy and your sleepless nights doing what you do. I apologize. These decisions are not made lightly. There's not one person in this room that hasn't lost sleep over the decisions that we're making. We care about every person that is under our stewardship. We have worked tirelessly to make sure that we're making the right decisions. And there is no solid information that we can just turn to. There's no book of facts on the coronavirus that we can say, if we do X, Y, and Z, we're going to be safe. And so in making these decisions, I trust each one of you that you're doing the best that you possibly can with the information, and I'm very grateful for that. I trust it so much that my kids are in the system, and I trust them to come and to be a part of this. And as a parent, I know that everybody struggles with those decisions. So please understand, we are doing our best. And this is an important thing. That's why we're all here. That's why we've put so much time and effort into this. I apologize for getting emotional, but this is something that's important. And I think everybody here feels the weight of this calling. And as we pull together, we're going to make the best decisions for Dysart, because we are Dysart. And we have to come together, and we have to educate our students, and we have to provide a safe work environment. There are no other choices. So I commend you for what you've done. I respect you for your hard work and the extra hours that you put in. And know that I'm here to support you in every way I possibly can. And with that, I'll turn it over to anybody else that wants to speak. And just know that I had enough tears for everybody, so.
President Leonard, thank you very much for everything you just said. That is very heartfelt, very mindful, very appreciative of what we are going through. And as I said earlier, this is something that we have never dealt with before. That even with all the technological advances that we've had over the past many, many years, this is a brand new era. And quite honestly, I'm not satisfied with the new normal. I want us to be stronger, wiser, better, and there's so many things that we have to take into account to make sure our students and our staff are safe and are in a learning mindset. And I couldn't have put it better myself. I do have a couple of questions for, actually, I think there's one for Dr. Kellis. Nope. Yes, one for Dr. Kellis. One of the things that happened to me on TV right before I left the house, it was talking about PPE starter kits for districts. I don't know if you heard about that. And it was a small amount of masks and hand sanitizers in that. And maybe it's not for Dr. Kellis, it might be for Mr. Hicks. But it was a small amount of masks and hand sanitizer and whatnot. And of course, it said afterwards, districts will have to purchase and provide all this stuff. What mechanisms do we have in place to support this?
Mr. President, Ms. Horsink-Bell, I think what you're referring to is the Maricopa County Department of Education, McKeesa Education Support Agency has said that they are distributing these starter kits for the PPEs. We appreciate the support of anybody who is willing to help support our staff and our students. But yes, the question of supply lines, supply access, what kinds of supplies are needed. Just with the topic of masks, for example, just this week, Maricopa County issued not guidelines, but requirements that all students wear masks at school whenever they are on school grounds. And that's a variation from our previous guidelines. And what our safety protocols were previously, that if they are outside, if they are exercising, that they don't have to. If they're in the cafeteria, eating, that they don't have to. These new requirements mandate that students wear them unless they're eating or engage in strenuous exercise. We understand that if you have, well, we want everybody to bring the PPE that they are most comfortable with. You see in this room, most of us have our own personal masks. But there might be, if you follow the Costco model, there are those customers who show up without one. and we feel obligated to have a supply line available for students or staff who need it to be able to comply with the county health requirement for schools. So if you were to just assume that nobody had a mask, so we have about 23,000 students, another 2,000 staff, employees, figure roughly 25,000 people in the district. And if we provided one disposable mask per person, that's 25,000 masks in one day. If you were to carry that out over a week, then we're looking at 125,000 masks a week. If you look at the cost of them right now, I think at Walmart you can get 25 masks for $17. If we were to just go at a discount and say they're $1 each, or 50 cents each, that would be, you can calculate for 1 week anywhere between $80,000 and $125,000, and then you carry that out over the course of the semester. We do have a partnership with the masks, our own in our own neighborhood. Iris is a manufacturing company in the district, and they are very gracious to offer us a discount of 17 cents per mask. So we have ordered 60,000 masks from Iris at 17 cents. Those are the kinds of community district relationships that really gel our whole community and make it important to say that we're all in this together, and it's not you fix it, it's we can fix this and provide the supports. Mr. Hicks, I don't know if you have any other comments about the PPEs and what we have available.
Just to continue on with the conversation is in cabinet we talk about where's our inventory, what do we have, how long do we need. So we talk about different inventory, how many hand sanitizer stands do we have. We have limited or no water for sinks in our portables, so we need to get hand sanitizer in every single portables. For the masks, how do we get, where are the bus drivers holding masks so the kids when they enter the bus, if they don't have a mask, we have to give them one. So what kit are they bringing onto the bus to have that? So we go through and how many days supply do we need? And so, and we'll be distributing that out to the schools with the expectations for supplies and how to communicate back to. We keep it all. We've actually changed the locks on a few rooms down in maintenance to make sure that we keep all of our PPE pretty safe and secure so it's not walk-in or anything. So we have control over, we know how much we received and how much we're given to schools on any daily basis, but we continue to monitor all of those, and that goes for spacing signs on the floor. We've got those ordered and coming in. Additional plexiglass. We have plexiglass going to every school, I think 2 or 3 of them, every school to create some barriers for plexiglass. We also have staff that want to purchase additional PPE, plexiglass and others, and they work with our facilities to make sure, because some of them, if we did them the way they would like, would violate fire code, so we still have to maintain our fire code compliance and modify some of those requests in that sense. But we're constantly evaluating, assessing our inventory and where we're at and how long things will take to get there.
I have a follow-up question just about that, but I want to change gears for just a second. It was stated that Superintendent Hoffman is trying to push full funding for online learning. Have you heard anything different? I know that the announcement will be tomorrow, but she kind of remains steadfast in this. Do you have anything to say?
Mr. President, Ms. Soros-Bill, I think what you're referring to is State Superintendent Hoffman has basically issued a statement. This is what she expects or is asking the governor to do, and you're exactly right, and that is to fully fund online instruction. At one point, the leaders at B determined that it's cheaper to teach online than it is face-to-face. And what districts are learning very quickly, as Ken just outlined one piece of the additional expenses that are required. We didn't get into how much other technology is needed for all of our students to be able to learn from at home. Dr. Pulling mentioned access, internet access, that we're finding more and more families don't have sufficient internet access for multiple kids, plus maybe a working adult in the room to be able to log in and follow the student schedule if there's multiple kids in the house, if they even have internet at all. We have some of our staff who have reported they do not have internet access. They might have a cell phone, but it's hard to teach a class from a cell phone. So if we want our teachers to provide an extraordinary experience for our students, we would hope that they would have the appropriate Wi-Fi access wherever they're teaching from. So these are all things that could potentially increase the costs. We looked at hotspots to provide for those, whether students or staff who need them. A hotspot is basically just a little plastic box that provides internet in the household. If we were to purchase those, we looked at just 100 of them, and that would be $24,000. If you look around the state, there are other districts who are in the exact same situation. So statewide, I think there was a false belief that it's cheaper to teach online than it is to teach face-to-face. And so Superintendent Hoffman is appealing to the governor to fully fund, because right now if a school goes strictly online, we only get 95% of the funding that we would typically get if the students were in a classroom. That extra 5% for Dysart, Mr. Hicks, would equate to
Probably $9 million.
So if we only got 95%, we would be shorted about $9 million. That's a lot. Knowing we got shorted $9 million, plus we have to expend another couple of million just for all of the extra technology and PPEs and things, plexiglass hardware, to be prepared for students to come back. So I don't know if that answers your question, but we support the Superintendent Hoffman's appeal for full funding.
It does, and I know that several districts are supporting that as well, that they wanting the full funding for online. I didn't know approximately how much that would be regarding the 5%. That's a pretty penny, and having the other expenses on top of that is just astronomical.
Mr. Arcibio, if I could just add, so the governor in one of his executive orders basically gave districts the choice. We could take the 95%, or we could take the 98%. So 95 for current year for the students that we have enrolled, 95%, or 98% of last year's budget. But even if we took 98% of last year's budget and said we'll take that, we would still be losing about $3 million off of last year's budget, carrying it forward if we just did identical. Now, the governor did say that there's an option to submit a grant, non-competitive grant for that extra 5% of the 95%, but there are strings attached to it. One of those being that we would have to offer parents a place where they can bring their kids during the day. So if we went all online and didn't offer that in-person drop-off opportunity, we would lose the 5%. We would not be eligible for that 5% to get us to the full funding. So districts are grappling with that. If you close schools and go online, but then say we will take any student who needs a place to be during the day, you're basically reopening your schools. We are looking at some learning labs for our community and for our employees. We are going to have to put a cap on it because we know that we can't take 500 students back to school when we're closed. And it's just it's interesting. And again, we're hoping for more flexibility.
Thank you, Dr. Kellis. When I figure out my question, I can't remember, I will ask you, Mr. Hicks. The moment, that's all for me.
Excellent, thank you. Ms. Tanner?
Think of anything else other than what's been asked or said?
Awesome, thank you. Ms. Densmore?
I just appreciate internally, you know, the opportunities for flexibility that we're looking at. I know that we're looking at legislatively or through the governor's executive order, we're looking for official opportunities for that flexibility. I guess some of the concerns that I've been hearing are just, you know, around like staff accommodations, for example. And I know that you said, Mr. Critter, that you're getting you're doing about 400 phone calls out. Are you also experiencing people that maybe didn't identify an accommodation originally and that are now realizing that they do need an accommodation? Are you still accommodating those requests?
Mr. President, Ms. Dinsmore, yes, we are being contacted. If they originally selected they don't need anything on what we call number one selection, we've had numerous people send us emails or calls, say, you know what, I changed my mind. So we put them right into that file, and we're addressing those also. So yes, we do talk to them if they change their mind,
Right.
definitely.
Just with everything changing, I mean, they may not have anticipated something originally.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. The other thing I had a question on, so originally you mentioned for high school about 24 to 25% were requesting online, and then about 30% for elementary. Is that still accurate, or was that just the initial survey results? I don't know.
Mr. President, Ms. Dinsmore, those are accurate numbers. That data has been cleaned up, so the initial survey, and that data has been cleaned up, so those are very accurate numbers.
Okay.
As we move forward in the schedule, we have to be really accurate, and we're up against the time to get the staff in the proper place. So we look at those are updated as of this morning, so
Thank you so much.
you're welcome.
All right, Ms. Pritchard.
I had several, but just in the interest of time, I'm just going to kind of narrow it down to some of the bigger areas that I think would be good just for the community to understand too. And then because there's been so many changes, if there's any updates to this, Dr. Kellis. But in regard to, so speaking about like the reopen date, I think it'd be good because you've been able to articulate it pretty well as far as Dysart's position. I know the board, and we've been forwarding all of our emails, has been flooded with people thinking that, you know, we can just decide to open in October or maybe January. Maybe explain your thought process behind how we came to August 17th, and if that were to change, what would impact that decision?
Mr. President, Ms. Pritchard, excuse me, that is probably one of the biggest questions that is being asked is, if we're not going to open on August 17th, then when? And in light of other districts who have already made the announcements that they're not opening until October, there's that looming question, what about Dysart? And as we look at what other districts, the process that they followed in getting to that decision, there has been some question on our part about, are they considering all of the unintended consequences of making that decision? I had a meeting earlier today, and I shared that in my heart of hearts, we're not going to open on August 17th. I think the governor will announce at his press conference that it might go another 2 weeks. It might go 4 weeks. I'm hoping that it's you decide when you want to open. But as you look at Dysart and why we're proceeding the way that we are, we need to look at all of the pieces to the puzzle. As President Leonard said, there's a lot of moving pieces to the puzzle, and we are making decisions that are very closely aligned to data and to the information. Sometimes that data can be seen through very narrow lens, and it's, I'm not safe, don't open schools. But in reality, we don't have the luxury of looking through that narrow lens. We have to look at a very broad lens and look at all of the different implications of what it means to change the start date to a school year. Yes, it would be easy to say that money should not drive our decisions. As a superintendent, I am responsible for the money. I'm responsible for the safety of our students and staff. I'm responsible for the academics. Even though it may be a stretch, I feel responsible for every family that has parents who work and don't know what to do with their kids for supervision during the school day. So it is definitely a delicate balance that always tilts towards safety. If I were to put on my prediction hat and say, when is school going to open? I would suspect it's not going to be August 17th. I am very confident that it will be at a time when we all feel a little bit more comfortable. I just hesitate to say it's going to be in October. Could be. And if it's October, the benefits of opening in October is that gives us a couple of months of stability. It would be great just to say, we need those 2 months to be able to have some semblance of normalcy, rather than I would be frustrated if the governor said 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. And we just would have that emotional yo-yo happening of should we, could we, will we, is it going to go further than 2 weeks? So there's a greater level of confidence with our community, knowing and being able to plan further out than just a couple of weeks. But we know that if we go alone, that we may be jeopardizing more than what other districts have considered when you look at up to $13 million. That's significant. But if we're just a little bit patient and we make sure that all the pieces are in the right place, we'll get there, and we will not lose the funding. And it's not a matter of putting funding over lives. We're not going to put people's lives in danger. But there's a sense of urgency that people want to know right now, where are we going to be on August 17th? Are we going to come back too early? We will not put people's lives in danger. We will make the right decisions. It's just difficult to be able to come out and announce today that we are going to be open until August or October or January. Don't quote me on anything, January. But it's something that we are looking at every single day, sometimes 3 and 4 times a day. Right now, we are looking at the governor's press conference. And if the governor were to say, we're going to try it another week, see how it goes, that would be a very frustrating response from the governor. I would hope that he would look at that stability and that opportunity for some semblance of normalcy that would allow us to, if we're closed for 2 months. At the same time, I also understand that puts a lot of families in very difficult predicament. And so as we look at ways to mitigate the extra stress, the extra emotional duress that our families are experiencing, our students are experiencing from that separation, we look for solutions to that as well.
Okay, thank you. And just kind of to piggyback on that, that piece too, as far as coming back, how would we balance though, like let's say we're, well, even from the 7th to the 4th to the 17th, if we were to offer our community some childcare options, you know, there's the argument as well of, well, if it's not safe to have students in a classroom, how is it safe to have a lot of locations where there's a lot of students in one room or classroom for childcare services?
Mr. President, Ms. Pritchard, I appreciate that argument. It's an option. It's not a requirement. It's something that for those families who see the need for it. Again, we are not going to put children's lives in danger. If you look at how the room is set up tonight, this was done very intentionally with a lot of forethought on how to keep everybody in this room safe. And when we bring any person onto our facilities, we take that charge very seriously to make sure that they are safe. So those learning labs will have specific safety protocols in place. We've been doing them during the summer with summer camps very successfully. to the satisfaction of all those who have been present. And we would continue to make sure that it's a safe, supervised place for students to do their schoolwork between the 4th and the 17th and beyond if necessary. And just as a side note, these students are not in classrooms with teachers. We have asked the teachers teach from their classrooms to provide a very focused professional experience for the students. The learning labs would be in very large group areas, cafeteria, the gym, the library, where they could be adequately distanced apart from each other, and that they would not be mixing with other people on campus like teachers and staff who are teaching remotely.
Okay, thank you. Now with that then, since we're talking about room space, so just something to consider, or just I'm sure you've already considered your thoughts on this. So if we have a lot of students right now who are, especially in high school, opting for online, and then that means our class sizes are naturally dropping, is there the potential for, rather than collapsing all of those classes and making a full class of 32 students, why wouldn't we keep those class sizes smaller so we could social distance? Or is that something that's already being considered and we're already putting in place?
Mr. President, Member Pritchard, the answer to your question is that that's exactly what's happening now. So as we are scheduling our students and our teachers for online high school, the iSchool option, we're utilizing the sections that we have available within our high schools currently. We're not adding sections to our staffing so as not to incur more cost. But for example, if let's say Valley Vista High School has 60 students in English 1 and 20 of them opt for online learning, or let's say 40 of them opt for online learning, we would take one of those two sections, and one of those sections would teach iSchool, the other one would keep the other 20 students in the physical classroom piece, which currently is remote learning. So we are not looking to shrink our sections to a very small piece at this point in time. Our high school principals are managing that piece on the campus, and they are managing their iSchool sections through their current staffing so that we're able to keep classes low if we possibly can for the return, but also make sure that we take care of our iSchool sections through the current high school allotment.
At K-8, similarly, they're spreading out those iSchool sections across. If there's 3 grade level teachers, then each grade level teacher might have 7, 7, 7. So yes, indeed, then it reduces in-person class size when we come back.
And so what you may have is let's say, take an English teacher, for example. An English teacher might teach 4 ground courses and 1 iSchool course of their English class. And so that way we're maintaining the integrity of their schedule, we're maintaining the integrity of the sections, but we're able to handle both the number of students that are in the physical location, which is starting remotely, and the iSchool sections as well.
So then you would be able to, so like, let's say there were 90 students total because I'm not as quick with my math, Mr. Hicks, as you are, so bear with me on the easy example. But if there's like 90 students enrolled in freshman English, and so there's 30 in each class, and let's say half of each class, so 45, would sign on for online, then I'm saying, couldn't we keep 15, 15, 15, rather than let's combine 2 of the classes and have a class of 30, and see what I'm saying, to where we kind of, even if it's a really, really low number, are you guys open to keeping it low rather than collapsing so we can ensure that distance for teachers?
So a couple things. The first, I want to make sure that you're not asking Mr. Hicks to respond, because I'm not sure we have that much time left in the meeting this evening. But secondly, yes, our high school principals are looking at those components as they balance between iSchool sections with our iSchool staff and their current ground piece. We're also keeping in mind that there is a strong possibility that when we return to school physically, whenever that may be, that a good number of those students who are currently signed up for online school, iSchool, are going to transition back into the building. And so that's why we're working to maintain the integrity of those sections so that that transition is an easy transition back into the school and we don't balloon up classes at that point in time.
Well, and I know since we're all using Florida Virtual, it's supposed to be a semi-seamless transition
Yes.
back and forth. But from my understanding, when everyone starts on August 4th, you may not be starting in iSchool. You'll be virtual, but you may not be in the iSchool program. It's not like everyone can just Zoom into their classroom. You're only Zooming in if you have signed up for in-person, and the rest would be in their iSchool.
That is correct.
format.
That is correct. However, one of the advantages and one of the reasons that we made the decision to use Florida Virtual as the curriculum for all of our courses this year, whether it's iSchool or ground courses, is that opportunity for transition. So theoretically, if I am in an English 1 class and I'm taking it online through iSchool, and I decide to come back in the middle of October, my pacing should be very similar to where I am when I re-enter the classroom. And so by having Florida Virtual as the curriculum across the board, that allows for those easy transitions in and out throughout the course of the school year.
And this comment, again, is kind of an extension to what we're talking about, and I know not to really get into a lot of dialogue now because it's too big for tonight, but I just want you to consider it and think about it. You know, we've all talked about, we know how every student learns differently. They have their own unique learning style, and where attending online through Zoom, you're virtual, it's not the same as iSchool. And so because of the situation, you know, we're making students choose between one or the other. iSchool can be scary for some because with iSchool, especially our high school students, where if you're in a class and heaven forbid you fail your final, you can still get credit and pass that class. You're on iSchool, you get less than 60%, you have lost credit, you're maybe not graduating or you're behind. And so if you know you don't learn that well anyway, I just hate to think of students who are unintentionally kind of punished for a situation that's out of their control because maybe their parent doesn't want them returning or they can't because they've got medical issues and they're stuck with this one option. So I'm just asking you to consider when you're looking at all these things, the possibility of a live stream or some way that these students who would want to be in their classroom and see their teacher and have that relationship, be able to attend virtually that way rather than be completely on their own in an iSchool environment that may not be conducive to their learning style. So just, I hope you guys will think about that because I've heard that from various people, and I think it's a valid one to at least consider. So I hope you'll maybe consider that.
And we appreciate that point. And one thing that I would add is that those students who take courses through iSchool are assigned a teacher. And there is a teacher who is responsible for their learning as well. So while they're not attending school from 7:15 to 2:15 every day, there is a teacher that's assigned to that class, and that is assigned and responsible for their learning. And so where students may find the benefit of being able to work on their course at any time that they want in the middle of the day, middle of the night. You know, when my kids were in high school, they were up until all hours. And so maybe at 1 a.m., that's when they go and they do their coursework. There is still a teacher that's available, that's monitoring their progress, that's checking in with them, and that is available through office hours for that student to get help as well. And that's the iSchool model, you know, within that. You know, we are very cognizant and very concerned that about the academic loss of all of our students. Our students missed 10 weeks of in-school instruction in the spring. We've had the typical summer period, and now we're coming back to remote learning. And so we're very cognizant of making sure that all of our students, regardless of which format they choose to attend school, that we're providing supports and measures needed for them to be successful moving forward. We can't lose an entire generation of students to 1 or 2 school years that were a bit out of the norm. And so we're very cognizant of that, but thank you for that point.
Yeah, and I don't want to, I understand teachers be responsive through iSchool, but I'm just saying again, back to that learning style, you don't get that face-to-face interaction, you don't get the class discussion. It's still a different experience.
It is absolutely a different experience, you're correct.
Yeah. Because things have changed, Dr. Kellis, can you just kind of quickly review the reentry protocols for both students and staff that present with COVID-like symptoms, or maybe they've tested positive for COVID? What's that protocol look like?
So currently, from a student perspective, I'll let Mr. Croto address the staff piece. But I can talk from the perspective of what we've done with athletics and how that would impact the school year moving forward. And the reason I bring athletics into the conversation is that we have dealt with a couple of COVID situations with our athletic workouts this summer. And so students who present positive with COVID are quarantined from being able to return for 14 days. Any student who has had direct contact with that student, and direct contact is defined by the CDC. Any student who has had direct contact has been quarantined for 14 days from being able to return. Upon return, symptoms are checked every day. There is a sheet that's used to monitor symptoms of students, and that will be the case with the classroom as well. Just as all of our temperatures were taken as we came into the building today, that will be part of our protocol with students as well. And so if a student tests positive for COVID-19 in a school, then we will handle that through student services in working with the family to keep them from returning to school and for a period of time, that 14-day period. And we will also work to find those students that were that had direct contact to do the same as well. Mr. Croto can explain the pieces related to staff.
Thank you. Like the students, the employees are very similar. So there's two theories out from the CDC based on a return to work status. One is symptoms-based, which we use, and one is test-based. So the question always comes, do we require tests to return to work? That answer is no. We use the symptom-based approach. So that one basically, in the symptoms-based approach, is 14 days since contact, either having COVID in the test or having contact with somebody who was positive. So your direct contact, remember, is less than 6 feet for greater than 15 minutes. And so we use that thing. So if they have to be symptom-free, no fever for 24 hours, and all those things before they return to work. So I have one person in my office that's in constant contact, documenting all that, setting dates, and making sure we follow all the protocol.
So even with, because obviously, I mean, fever you can measure, but some other symptoms that they're associating with COVID, you may not necessarily observe in a moment, like if you do like a quick screening. So if someone so we're not requiring testing at all, like a negative COVID test from someone that either we know was positive or continuing to recover, as far as knowing, it's basically on the honor system.
That is correct. We do not require, we're not using the test-based strategy. From my understanding, and I try to read everything from the CDC is ever changing. The CDC, well, for a couple reasons. I believe the CDC just came out and said that they do not prefer the test-based strategy. I'm not sure if that's because of timelines, how much the test is taken right now. We do have employees currently that it's been 3 weeks since they tested. And so that obviously that 14 days has passed. Before that time. And then the other piece, and there's so much to read out there, and I believe somebody said it before, we don't have any clear direction of this is the line we need to take. So 14 days is what we use on the symptoms-based approach, because supposedly, and I'm not a doctor, but all the symptoms and all that are gone, and you're not shedding the virus actively at the 14-day point. Now, we could probably sit here all night and refute that and argue back and forth because there's so much stuff out there. But we have chose a symptoms-based approach just because the test-based is not realistic in getting people to return to work. So to answer kind of the canned answer I just gave you to your question is, yes, we are in contact with them, so we require the honor system for them to say, I'm symptom-free, I don't have a fever. I haven't had fever for 24 hours. I don't have the chills. I don't have all those symptoms that are listed with that, and to go from there.
Thank you. Mr. Hicks, as you had mentioned, we were going through the cleaning protocols. You probably were just speaking in relation to the fact that front office staff, they're the ones that are here now, so maybe that's the only reason. But I just wanted, just for clarity, when you're saying like every day that front office is clean, staff bathrooms are clean, I'm assuming that student bathrooms and a classroom, like the whole campus is cleaned with that same procedure every day?
Mr. President, members of the board, yes. So there's a highlighted focus with no students on campus to make sure staff bathrooms are cleaned multiple times, 3 times in a day, where traditionally ABM would not be doing that. So that is different when students are going to be on. So yes, they clean the whole campus, and district office, my office gets cleaned and trash taken out. So they're doing that, but we've reprioritized some of the things they're doing to focus on where the staff are right now.
Okay, two quick questions for Mr. Croto. For teachers and iSchool, are we giving priority to teachers who maybe have some underlying health conditions, or for whatever reason, they just feel like, mainly probably for health, that it wouldn't be in their best interest to be in the classroom, but they're still willing to work and they're still, they're wanting that iSchool option? I mean, assuming, I know there's a fine balance because we have to make sure they're highly qualified and the best for that particular need of that classroom. But are we giving priority to staff members who have underlying health conditions for iSchool options?
Mr. President, Ms. Pritchard, we are taking those people that are asking for accommodations. They have to go through the interactive process for ADA accommodations. So that is a process that they go through. They have to fill out paperwork, have medical documentation, and that's such. So we are processing those. We are working through those. There has to be opportunities for them, not necessarily to teach at home, but maybe reduce the class size as opportunities come available. We just had an opportunity today where a school selected to have one teacher at a certain grade level teach all the online kids instead of spreading it out. So we did provide an ADA accommodation in that instance. So we are going, it's kind of a case-by-case basis on what the doctor recommends as we're going through the process. So they write down on the sheet what they recommend for an employee. So yes, we are working with them. We're trying to work with them. Is it a necessarily everybody gets to work from home? That answer is no. But we are working with all our employees to try to accommodate them the best we can and still keep our environment, our learning environment intact, basically.
Okay. And then my last question is just in regard to our classified staff, hourly staff. What are we doing to accommodate them? I know we've transitioned our certificated staff members back in, slowly with the green-blue schedule. What are we doing for classified? And then also, have you been forward-thinking as far as, again, if, depending on what the governor says, if we were to delay our start, just making sure, because our hourly staff, I mean, even a couple years ago, when things happen and schools close, they're without. And I kind of want, because now we have this time, I want to be able to hope we're planning and we're considering that, so they're not, they're having as much anxiety as the next person regarding what's going to happen with my paycheck and my livelihood and job. So,
Mr. President, Ms. Pritchard, you're absolutely right that the difference between the spring and today, this fall, is in the spring the governor said everybody gets paid through the end of the school year. So he basically waived a very critical law that is in place now, and that is the gift of public funds law. That we can't give money away. If somebody doesn't work, we can't just give them money for them not working. Whereas in the spring, the governor essentially waived that when he said everybody gets paid through the end of the year. So we are very considerate of all of our employees. In fact, that is one of the driving motivations of starting school on August 4th when the governor said school starts on August 17th. Because if we waited until August 17th, all of our employees who have job-related responsibilities to the students would not be paid until the students return to school, including all of our teachers, most of our support staff, the bus drivers. So that was a horrible situation for our employees to have to expect about a month delay in any income. As we're moving forward at this point, that is still a very key consideration, is how does any decision that we make impact all employees? It's one of those pieces of the puzzle. So as it is today, the gift of public funds law is intact. That's the second thing that I would ask the governor, is to waive the gift of public funds clause so that we could use our employees in a manner that is not, we could reassign them to different jobs, or if it so be that our bus drivers are needed on Tuesdays and Thursdays to distribute food or to help out in in the school wiping down door handles, but we don't need them 5 days out of the week that they don't go without any revenue or any income. But as it is right now, if we were to delay until October with having any students back in the classrooms, there's a very high chance that there'd be certain employee groups that would not get paid. Other districts are currently furloughing their employees, basically saying, we don't need you now, you're not going to get paid until we need you, and please don't leave us. Well, Dysart has a high need for bus drivers, and we would happily take any bus driver who's furloughed from another district.
Is that a plug? Thank you. That's all I have.
I just want to say real quick, like, I know that this reopening schools is just, there's no one I have talked to that is middle ground that just says, whatever happens, happens. It's either very passionate about reopening or very passionate about not reopening. And so I know that you, as our administrators, administration, you're tasked with the impossible of trying to make everyone happy. And I know that's impossible. But I do know that, Dysart's always been data-driven, and I appreciate you said that you look at the data, you see what truly is going on and trying to make decisions with that. But I also appreciate the fact that you say you're also trying to be very empathetic for people in their situations. And I know that everyone has a different experience with what is going on, and for some it is a very fearful experience, and for some it's not. But I appreciate the fact that you are also trying to be very empathetic to what everybody's situation is. I love the fact that you guys are focused on Dysart, and like you said, other districts are doing other things, but keeping it very focused on what is best for Dysart. And so I really appreciate that. And I think just tonight shows that you guys aren't just making flippant decisions, that every question that I've ever asked or I've noticed my board members asked, you've thought about, you have an answer to, and it just goes to show that there's been much time and effort. And we recognize that and know that and appreciate all the time and effort that you've put into this. I know that, just with your goals, you've had, when we hired on Dr. Kellis, he had great expectations and great things planned for Dysart that I know have been put on hold because of the situations that we're dealing with. And so I just appreciate all the effort that has gone into, trying to prepare to open our schools. And I just hope you know that I have full trust in our administration because of all the time and effort that you're putting in, as well as being empathetic to those around us. So thank you so much.
Anyone else? Going once, going twice. All right, you guys can all wipe the sweat off your heads. The tough questions are over. We're only going with easy questions for the rest of the night, Miss Pritchard. Just saying. Appreciate you guys and all your feedback. And like I said, it's we're working together. It's a great community. It's a great place to be. And like Miss Tanner said, I trust this process and what we're doing, because at the end of the day, each one of us gets to come and be a part of the process as well. So it's not that we're making decisions that we are not directly affected by. And we don't get the option to stay at home either. When the things come back, it's everybody comes back and we're all fully engaged. So I'm excited and I look forward to the governor and what he has to please say something good. So we'll support our leaders and do what we need to. So thank you for that. All right, moving right along. Let's see, where are we at? All right, we are going to action discussion item I, number 1, recommendation to approve a pro statement for the maintenance and operations budget override election to be held on November 3rd, 2020. Dr. Kellis.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, and members of cabinet. Earlier this year, the governing board voted to call for an election of an override for the Dysart Unified School District. This evening, Mr. Hicks will introduce this item and explain why this pro statement is necessary as part of that election.
Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Kellis, colleagues, community members, thank you for allowing me to continue to present tonight. Tonight, this is the pro statement for the governing board for the 15% continuation of the M&O override. So as you can see from the agenda language for elections, it is different between a bond and an override election. When a board approves a resolution for a bond election, they are not allowed to approve a pro statement, but for an override, they are required to. So a lot of times this will be attached to the resolution. I think that was June 10th, and I had a lot going on and did not make dates to the pro statement that we had previously, so I updated that, and this is a requirement, and this is our last governing board member before the required date, board meeting before the required date. So I've made the slight modifications to the attached pro statement, and would be happy to go through it and make sure that everything is okay with the governing board, or if we want to make modifications, I can make the modifications approved as in, and then I have to submit this tomorrow to Maricopa County for the ballot. They're waiting. I think I've gotten 3 emails from them in the last day and a half. So I will leave it to the board to discuss and approve.
That is one way to improve your popularity statuses, to keep them on the hook. I've read it. Anybody else have any questions? Discussion? All right, without any discussion, I'll motion to approve the resolution of the governing board's argument in support of the continuation of the special maintenance and operations budget override election.
Second.
Motion made by Jay Leonard, seconded by Tracy Sawyer-Sinkbelt. Let's go ahead and vote. The declaration of the trust. Dr. Kellis.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, and members of cabinet. Mr. Hicks will introduce this item.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Kellis, colleagues, and community members. I do appreciate your time, and thank you very much for allowing me to present this agenda item. This is a slight modification to our current Employee Benefit Trust Board agreement. This change, what it will allow one member that's on the board to actually have a spouse or dependent that is an employee of the district. So they themselves would not be an employee, but they would have, and it is, so that's really the only change this is. It's one that is small, and I also don't believe that it would hinder the trust's ability to make the best decisions and recommendations going forward, knowing that they're unduly influenced because they have a spouse or dependent that is actually an employee. With this change, and if the board approves it, tonight we will post and advertise for our community to apply, because we do have some open seats. So we have technically 2 open seats that will be presented. Hopefully, if we're able to post that tomorrow or Friday, it'll be a Google form for them to apply, and then we will bring back to the board on the August 12th governing board meeting to recommend our new trust board, Employee Benefit Trust Board members. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you for that. Do we have any discussion, any questions?
I had one question. Mr. Hicks, the folks that have been on the employee trust, benefits trust, they've been on it for a while. We've had some long-standing people. So you don't think that there would be any issues in trying to find a couple of other people?
Mr. President, members of the board, we do have one that is not continuing.
Okay.
So Mr. Christie has done an amazing job leading and helping. He has asked to pass the torch and let somebody else please take. So even though we have 2 expiring and we will be posting for 2, 1 will be renewed and recommended, but technically his term expired June 30th, so it's technically, we did not bring him back to the board before, so it's not a continuation. We're making him reapply. And we will have 1 new board member.
Because they've been on it for a while, and continuing to be on it was a great thing, so I'm glad that they're going to miss him.
If I could just say, they provide a lot of continuity because of their knowledge and understanding. So conversations happen quicker, discussions, so that they're able to make the best recommendations and to technically, they're like an oversight. And so they hold us accountable to make sure that we're doing what's right for our employees.
Are we able to thank Mr. Christie at a later date as far as the board?
That's a great idea.
Okay.
Apologize that I didn't think of that myself.
No.
Yes, thank you very
You're
much.
allowed, but no PowerPoint when you do it. Okay.
And by no PowerPoint, she means a very short presentation. Just want to make sure we clarified that after you cleared your desk earlier. And
Thank you.
any other discussion on this one?
Yeah, just a super quick question for clarification. So how is this any different than how board members aren't allowed to have a spouse or dependent? Is it because the trustee board doesn't have final approval over as far as then, because I know like with us, it's because you're voting on benefits and salaries. So even though they're dealing with benefits, is it because they don't technically have final approval? Is that the difference?
The difference of why this is recommended and our attorney reviewed it and approved it?
Yeah, in regard to just the different, because you're asking us to approve this now, I'm just asking as far as like how it's different that the trustee board, they're asking to say, having one, if a member on that board has a spouse or a dependent, that now that's allowed. And I'm just saying, how is that different from like a governing board cannot have a spouse or a dependent working in the district? So is it because the trustee board doesn't have final approval where the board is actually voting on it, so can actually?
Madam President, Mr. President, members of the board. That's by law and statute of that. This is a trust board agreement that we've created as our governing board. So we can control, you could say all employees be on it right now. Our attorney did not restrict that in that sense. And so we're doing what we think is the fairest, and having up to 1 allows for more people to be on. It is hard sometimes to find people to serve on these boards. And so we don't want to limit the number of people that we're going to advertise to try to be on the board. And so they would be on. They don't have final, so the governing board has the purse strings. And so they could recommend something and you could overrule them. So it does also have that extra layer, just as you just described.
Okay, I was just curious, thanks.
Yeah.
Great discussion, thank you. Any other discussion? All right, I'll motion to approve the changes to the Employee Benefit Trust Agreement and Declaration of Trust.
Second.
Motion made by Jay Leonard, seconded by Ms. Sawyer Seatbelt. Let's go ahead and vote.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, and members of cabinet. Mr. Hicks will take this item as well.
I knew there was going to be slides.
Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Kellis, colleagues and community members, I'm extremely happy to be presenting my final agenda item for tonight. And here tonight, I actually have Mr. Ben Madston from Midstate Energy. Well, I think you're now Verity. There's a name change in the company. Will be here co-presenting with me on the item. We actually have 2 others that are online that give support. And Mr. James Gill with Augusta Rosenfeld is our attorney in this manner, and he is watching online for 2 items. One we've already done on the pro statement to answer any questions, but he's also supporting online for this agenda item. And Mr. Brian Lundberg, who's with Stiefel, is also online by email or text message if I say anything wrong. They're empowered to let me know to correct that. But just wanted to acknowledge their help and support as we go forward in this. So we will, myself and Ben will go back and forth over, we have a upgrades through equipment upgrades. We're going to have savings, but we're using the savings to pay for itself. So that means budget neutral in a lot of cases. Here's our what we're talking about. The simplicity of this actually has started 3 years ago. Ben, do you remember how long you've been working? It was before I got here.
Yes. Yep. Correct.
You can chime in. So we've been working on this for 3 years. Dysart has, looking at it, reviewing it, and it requires, and I'll let Ben go into investment grade audits and other things that are required to be done. But it provides just the simplicity is to save money through energy conservation measures to help pay for those improvements. So I'm just going to hit it again of budget neutral. And I'm hitting that again, and I'll say many times over, and Ben's going to say it probably on the next slide, and we'll say it by the end. Because through many times, and I've started some of these and stopped them, and they did not pay for themselves. Or when I first started it, the very first time I tried it, looking into this was about 9 years ago, and the savings was hardly any savings. And I just said, why am I doing this? I'm not going to go through all of this for almost no savings. And just as a reminder, we're not doing it to save lots of money because we're going to use the savings to pay for the equipment. We're doing it to upgrade the equipment at no cost to our taxpayers or to our budget. And so just as a reminder, that's our goal. Safety, comfort, energy efficiency, and sustainability. So I'll let Ben talk a little bit.
Perfect. Thanks, Ken. Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Kellis, members of the community, thank you. I'm Ben Mattson, Principal Executive with Midstate Energy. Thanks for the introduction, Ken. Ken told me I had an hour and a half. So. But
you do as long as it's at your house.
Ken was wrong.
But I'll keep it pretty basic. So energy performance contracts at their core, they were developed, they've been around for over 35 years. In the last 12 years, they've really been developed here in Arizona. They were developed by the Department of Energy, the School Facilities Board. Arizona schools, as you all know, being board members, are usually drastically underfunded. There's always budget concerns. And most importantly, districts have a hard time passing bonds. So performance contracts are a way to utilize your existing budget of utility cost. And if you think about your school, and then there's these dollar bills escaping out of the school from inefficiencies, whether that be lighting, HVAC, controls, all of that money escapes out. We simply grab that money and then redirect it back into capital infrastructure. So if you look at the graph here, I think this is the best explanation of how a performance contract works. The utility cost column there on the left-hand side, then the energy project comes into play where there's the debt service that's paying for the actual upgrades themselves. Your utility costs drop. There's additional savings above that. And then after the project, the savings is all there. The entire amount, it's still the same amount of money. And so that is why districts have utilized these so much, is to utilize their existing budgets and redirect that back into capital needs. So a lot of times we call them self-funded capital improvements. But the best thing about these is it's capital upgrades without increasing taxes.
And so that's why I do like the explanation. I love this graph because when I first said no 9 years ago, said, hey, it's not saving enough because it's paying I'm not putting a lot of money back into M&O over the 12 years or 11 years that we were looking at that project. And so I just said no. But the goal wasn't to save M&O during those 11 years. It's to upgrade equipment that's 18, 19, 20 years old for no cost. And so the savings is not, instead of paying APS, we're going to be paying financing institution for these. So, and then there's other soft costs that are also beneficial to the district, which I know Bob and his team are looking forward to. LED lights have a warranty of 10 years, 7 years?
Yeah, 10 years.
10
yeah.
years. And so if one fails, they don't fail as often. We don't have to change lights as often. We get cases from the warranty, and if it does, we don't have to buy a light bulb for the next 10 years. We like that. It allows them to redirect their time to do other things.
We'll move on to the, yeah, thank you. Last thing I'll say on performance contracting, the biggest thing for the statute is guaranteed energy savings. So if we say we're going to save Dysart $1 million and next year we come in at 900 grand, by state statute, I would have to owe you a check for 100 grand. So we've been in business for over 35 years. We've wrote 2 checks. So it's not, I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but the risk is on us to make sure that the savings are there. This is Midstate Energy's ego slide. This is how great we are. So I won't spend too much time on this. We're the largest company here in Arizona. We're a homegrown company. We've helped school district achieve, actually it's up to almost 400 million now. We have 3 offices in Arizona, and we employ, now it's at over 300 people. Actually, some of them live right here in your school district. We've worked from Flagstaff to Nogales to Santa Cruz to Glendale Union, Glendale L. Over 68 districts have participated in our energy performance contracts.
I think, well, I don't want to keep talking to continue. I was going to share some stories, but let's just go on. What are we doing?
Yeah, so Ken mentioned LEDs. This is a big part. This is kind of a low-hanging fruit item. I'm sure if you walk the aisles of Home Depot or Lowe's, you'll see a lot of things about LED lighting. This has a great payback, and most importantly, this is where we really see an enhanced learning environment, making sure that all the light levels of the desks are the same. 10-year warranty. The actual hour rated is actually over 75,000 hours, which is over 30 years. We get really positive feedback on our lighting as it has an impact in the classroom. We hear a lot of great feedback in special needs classrooms where fluorescent lighting has a tend to pulsate, and LED lights really can help calm the environment and make for a better learning space in special needs areas. Ken, anything to add on LEDs?
Nope, they have a great return. Their ROI is very good.
Next thing, this is really a major capital infrastructure need of the district, and that's the South Central plant or by Dysart High School. This as part of our project, we're looking at a complete upgrade of the pumps, the chillers, the associated piping, the control system. This is really aging HVAC equipment. This is definitely a need for the school district, and as part of our project, we're going to be looking to completely revamp what they call the central plant. Anything there, Ken? The next thing is building automation or demand management. You may have heard the term smart buildings. This is where HVAC controls really come into play. Demand is really a topic of conversation with utilities right now. If you Mr. Croto there's got 2 cans of Coke there. If he decides to chug the one on the left and then sip the one on the right, the one on the left that he decides to chug, I won't make him chug it, but the one on the left could be would be $5, and the one on the right that he decides to sip is only 50 cents. That's my best explanation for demand, but how you use your buildings is so important now. It's not just about kWh savings or reduction. It's actually how you're utilizing your energy, and the utilities company call that demand. This is also an area where we're going to aid in your COVID response. Mr. Hicks talked in the beginning of the board meeting about fresh air and controlling that space. If there is a COVID-19 case, we can implement negative pressure strategies. We can bring in necessary fresh air. All of that has to do with smart building controls. And so it allow district and the district facility to really help aid the building operations. Also, your space is really changing right now. And this is going to allow you to save additional money if you don't have to operate, heat and cool and turn the lights on if there aren't teachers there. And so this is really going to allow for some additional savings. We first implemented this. Ken, if you want to talk about maybe our case study that we did.
I was just going to share, we have done this at Surprise Elementary, and for the last year, we've saved over 40% on their utility bills. Now, it does create some confusion because we do have solar, and so what we have done, looking through, and we've created a connection with our automation demand management. We connect it to Yahoo Weather, so it looks at what's the weather going to be in the next 6 hours, and it makes automatic adjustments to control that. We also super cool the buildings during the day, so when we hear complaints of we're wasting electricity because it's during the day, we're not. We're using the free electricity that we're going to pay for no matter what, which is solar. We super cool it, the block holds the temperature in longer, and then we're able to shut the air off sooner so that we save money where we're going to pay money with APS. And it has been extremely successful that we've saved over 40% on the year. And so it's been, we're looking to expand that district-wide with this program.
Great. So this is the final benefits. Really, as Ken mentioned, it's utilizing utility savings to pay for capital improvements, making this a budget-neutral decision, corrects a lot of building deficiencies, and improves the student environment. Our main goal here is bringing in some safer comfort and energy efficiencies. We're looking at a rebate directly from APS of upwards of $400,000 of free money that's coming from the utility. So we're really excited about that. We do offer ongoing energy sustainability training where we can help work with your building some of the culture. We do a solar car race, a wind farm exhibit, where we can bring in some of the energy and sustainability into the classroom. So we definitely will be working with the Dysart staff on that. Standardizing equipment, as I mentioned, aiding in some COVID-19 procedures. And the most important thing of why these work and how they work is that the savings are guaranteed. And so, yeah.
The total cost, so this is a big project. We are doing something at every single school, at every single site. Whether it's LEDs, or I think all but 2 of our sites, I think 2 of them already have it. EMS, our energy management system, the demand peak management to adjust and manage that, and then that central plant at Dysart High School. So it is a very big, here's the utility rebate, our estimated payment and annual savings, and the payment and financing, and I'll go through the next steps as we get to that. As I've gotten a text already from Mr. Gill about hearing and some choppiness online, and it's been corrected. Our next steps, we have already engaged an attorney to help create all of our documentation, resolutions, and forms needed. Financing is, we actually will go out to the open market, so we're hiring Stiefel to be a placement agent, so they will we've already worked on some term sheets and the background to be able to go out to the market and collect bids, essentially, in the capital marketplace. That allows us then to place the money into an escrow account as we do the construction. We'll make payments of that, and then we repay the lending institution that did that. It is actually a really good time right now to be going out. The rates are very low, and it's almost every 2 weeks when I'm talking to Mr. Lundberg, it goes down another 10 basis points in that sense. And so it is continuing to improve our financial situation, and our savings guarantee is getting that much easier to reach. The financing, as I just mentioned, walk through this really quickly, that is part of what all the agreements, and there is attached to this agenda item, Exhibit A, which lists what is being done at every single school so that people in our community will be able to see what's all being done. Construction will be done over the next 10 months, 10 to 12 months. To be completed, and then we'll start seeing the savings and start making the payments back on that. Everything's been, we're doing it with our attorneys to make sure they're okay with everything, to make sure we're following all the laws and making it sure that it's appropriate. And so just a little background, how long we've been working on this. It did require, part of it I don't think we mentioned, was the investment grade audit. So Midstate had to come out for about 3 or 4 months and just inventory and audit where and what we are, how many lights we have, how many light bulbs, what systems do we have, look at all of our bills for the last year to create the baseline. And so the benefit is looking at this. Obviously, we could do a lot more to conserve more and more, but he has to give a performance guarantee that he's guaranteed to save it. So the more things we throw in that don't have a quick ROI, like an LED lighting, harder it is. So sometimes we'll look and say, you know, that's not, we're going to get the savings for that. We can't do it because we have to guarantee it. So there are some things that we move out of it. But the benefit is that this is not going, it's not going to the bond, a bond committee. It's not going to be reviewed. We're going to make all these capital improvements with the savings that we're going to be getting from these capital improvements. And hopefully we've answered all your questions. I didn't time it, but I think that was a pretty good one.
We're going to have to invite the enforcer to be at all of your presentations so that they move that quickly, so that you're always looking over your shoulder. Definitely appreciate that. No, I love what you're doing. The fact that we can, you know, see these improvements and fund the equipment and make it a win-win is amazing. And I appreciate you guys, and especially your company, and for the oversight and just the vision that you have for looking at this and making it something that we as Dysart can utilize. I think it's an amazing program, and I like people that put their, you know, their neck on the line, and definitely can appreciate the guarantee and how you have to walk the line as well. So I appreciate that partnership. It's very important for us. Any questions or discussions on this one?
I did have one question. As one of those folks that can't quite stand the fluorescent, any offices that I have had, I've had them turn the lights off or disconnect. They're very hard on my eyes, so I greatly appreciate that. But one of the things that you had said 9 years ago, it just wasn't good for you. And I think it was at Peoria, right?
I was at Littleton at the time.
Okay.
Yes.
What changed? What specifically changed your mind from 9 years ago to now? I know that, and I read the presentation and everything, but there had to have been something specific that changed your mind from then to now.
Yeah, no, Mr. President, members of the board, it was, I looked at it as the total costs over a 10-year period and the total savings were almost exact. And so there was no, I was looking at it as, why would I do this? I'm not saving M&O money. I don't want to go through all this. Maybe I'll save a little bit in year 11 when it's all paid off, but I have to wait 11 years for the savings. And to me, that was looking, I just was one of the ones looking at it wrong at the time. You can get all your equipment upgraded. It might not, it's going to provide a little bit of savings on an annual basis, but not a ton considering the size of the project. But we upgrade all of our equipment at no cost. And so I was looking at it, why don't I save more money, just net dollars, when really I'm getting free upgrades to all of our capital equipment through the savings. So I believe I looked at it wrong is what the problem was.
You looked at it wrong.
And I'll be honest, I think we could actually save even more money, and we've talked. We lease purchase our solar, right? Or we third-party purchaser of our solar. Right now, when I look at how much we pay and what the PBIs are, we could save more money on solar. And so that might be something that'd be coming down the pike in the next 6 months.
Now, all of our schools have the solar.
Almost all of them, but we don't own any of it. And so.
Yes, but I thought all of them.
It's 2 sites that don't. 2 sites.
Two sites?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to add, you kind of touched on it, Mr. Hicks, but rather quickly, and I want to back up because when we talk about fiscal responsibility and how that's a priority of Dysart's, I mean, looking at the fact that I can't quote the year, but I know there's a time, or maybe it's ongoing, that chillers for some school, whether it be Dysart High School or whatever, it always shows up on our bond. Like there's always an issue with, like for chillers. The fact that, you know, you have found an innovative way or rethought, you know, another option without going to the taxpayers, I really appreciate that. I would just like to commend you for working within our means and finding this option that once we had to go out and ask through a bond, not that there aren't, you know, still things out there, but this is a big one, and I just really appreciate the fact that you have presented this as an option. As you're saying, it's gonna save us a lot. So thank you for thinking outside the box that way too.
You're welcome. We've actually, from the last bond that failed, we've taken a lot of things and said, where else can we get funding for these? And we've sent letters to the SFB. You've seen our SFB building renewals go up as we're looking at every direction, and this is one of the directions to find to get those capital improvements without having to go to our taxpayers.
Well, and as a board member, I appreciate you, but as a taxpayer in this community as well, I appreciate that you do that for us, so thank you. Amazing.
Anything else?
I'm just scanning through the contract here and all the information, but if we were to expand and add a school, like say 4 or 5 years from now, will this agreement cover those schools as well?
Mr. President, members of the board, no. So this is only the capital upgrades that we're doing with these construction that we will save the money. And so what we would do is, well, first of all, a lot of these are older, so it's the timeliness. New construction, we'd incorporate to make sure we have demand management and other requests when we put it in. A lot of these that we put in 20 years ago do not have those systems in place.
Right, no, I understand. I know the cost would obviously alter as we expand or grow, but I guess what I'm saying is, would it be an automatic thing that we would use this process for those schools, or would we need to revisit as we add?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. Mr. President, and I'm sorry, I couldn't see your last name, but to answer your question, yeah. So the one thing that this is doing is standardization of products and materials. And so there's not 20 different types of light bulbs across the district, right? There's one style. So we do see that new construction or updated construction, we want to use those standardized processes. We're on phase 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 with a lot of different districts throughout Arizona. So we have come back. We weren't doing LEDs 5, 6 years ago, but we were still doing these contracts. So now if there's more opportunities for savings, we would come back, talk to Mr. Hicks and his team to say, hey, these are some other additional opportunities. So I hope that helps answer your question.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Ms. Densmore, did he answer your question?
Yes, he did.
Okay, I thought you were saying as if we, or when we add our new high school, was that covered under? That's what I thought that you were asking.
Yeah, I thought that's what he said,
Okay.
though. Yes.
All right, okay.
Sorry.
Maybe
Yeah,
I was.
We're good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Any other questions? All right, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution to authorize the expenditure and delivery of the installation agreement, a tax-exempt equipment lease purchase agreement, an escrow agreement, related documents, and authorize the Assistant Superintendent of Business Services to approve and execute the agreement and any affiliated documents.
Second.
Motion made by Jay Leonard, seconded by
Christine Pritchard.
Chrissy Pritchard. Thank you. Let's go ahead and vote. And we pass. Thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation. Let's go ahead and move on to action discussion I-4, a governing board resolution in honor of the Dysart Unified School District Centennial. Dr. Kellis.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, and members of cabinet. It's not very often that I personally would recommend a resolution to the board, nor is it typical for the Dysart board over the history in recent years to adopt resolutions. But this is a big deal. As we celebrate our 100th anniversary, well, it only comes around 100 years. And so we want to break tradition and request that the board approve this resolution. And if the board would indulge me, I would like to read the resolution. Dysart Unified School District resolution in honor of the Dysart Unified School District Centennial. Whereas for 100 years, the Dysart Unified School District has been a valuable asset to the Northwest Valley by providing an extraordinary education to preschool through high school students. And whereas Nathaniel Martin Dysart first established Dysart Public Schools by donating land and convening a governing board on July 16, 1920, as a one-room schoolhouse with one teacher. And whereas in its early years, Dysart District served elementary students until 1962 when it opened its first high school, Dysart High School, to accommodate growth. And whereas the Dysart Unified School District was officially established as a consolidated K-12 system in 1977, and in 2001, hypergrowth created an influx of residents which greatly increased the demand for new schools. The district has since grown to serving over 24,000 preschool through high school students at 20 K-8 schools and 4 high schools, a preschool and 1 alternative program. And whereas Dysart schools offer a quality competitive education to the community, has 17 schools with an A or B rating from the Arizona State Board of Education, and have had 8 schools designated as A+ schools of excellence by the Arizona Education Foundation over the past 10 years. And whereas the Dysart Unified School District offers abundant choices and innovative programs to the community, attracting jobs and economic opportunities for the Northwest Valley. And whereas Dysart plays a key role in training for the future workforce of our community by offering award-winning career and technical education programs, signature programs, and college prep and testing opportunities. And whereas Dysart Unified School District will commemorate its centennial with special events and activities during the 2020-2021 school year. And now, therefore, the Dysart Unified School District Governing Board reaffirms our desire to continue to provide a quality, competitive education to future generations within the Dysart community. We hereby recognize July 22nd, 2020 as the start of the 100th anniversary year of the Dysart Unified School District, and invite our students, parents, staff, and community to participate in activities and events to commemorate the Dysart Unified School District's centennial year. And with that, administration requests that the board approve this resolution.
Thank you, and thank you for reading that. That's an amazing document. Any discussion?
I'm ready to celebrate.
Yeah.
What kind of events are we doing?
Mr. President, Ms. Tanner, we plan on having a host of virtual events.
I'll virtually be excited then. I'll make the motion to approve and adopt the resolution in honor of the Dysart Unified School District Centennial.
Second.
Motion made by Jay Leonard, seconded by Jen Tanner. Let's go ahead and vote. And it passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm excited about that. Thank you so much for putting it together. Let's go ahead and move on to action item J1, request for future agenda items. Anybody? Going once? Going twice? All right, we'll go ahead and move on to action item K1. Motion for the adjournment of the meeting, and I will make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Jay Leonard, seconded by Tracy Shore-Sinkbelt. Oh, sorry, Don Densmore.
Close enough.
Motion passes. We'll adjourn. Thank you, everybody. It's great seeing you.